pistol, which he then used to shoot himself dead on a busy ward at Northampton General Hospital, is tonight starting a 3-year jail sentence.
Music teacher Guy Button admitted possessing and passing on an illegal firearm. He gave the gun to his father, Ian Button, who was suffering from terminal lung disease.
Well, our correspondent Matthew Hudson was at Leicester Crown Court for sentencing, but joins us now from Northampton. Matt, clearly a tragic case.
Very tragic, Sasha, and one of the strangest in many ways that I've ever covered. It's an appalling thing for a young man to assist his own father in taking his life. Tonight, Ian Button is dead. His wife Christine is in a home. Their son is in prison. His reputation is in tatters. His career is ruined. But spare a thought also for the people who were here at the hospital and on the ward in the aftermath of Ian Button's suicide, and indeed for the police officers who had to deal with it. His crime was committed out of love, but it put others in danger. And today at Leicester Crown Court, Guy Button paid the price. Last October, Button smuggled a handgun into Northampton General Hospital, a gun his father used to commit suicide on a ward. After admitting firearms offences, he faced a mandatory 5-year prison sentence unless his defence team could convince the judge there were exceptional circumstances. Sentencing Button to 3 years in prison, Judge Charles Wyde said he believed there were exceptional circumstances, which meant he didn't have to impose the mandatory 5-year prison term. However, he said there were also aggravating features, notably the fact that the gun had ultimately been fired in a public ward in a hospital. The Second World War Walther PPK pistol had been held illegally by Button's father Ian for many years. Described in court as a proud man, Ian Button couldn't face a lingering death from lung disease in hospital. He shot himself after drawing the curtains around his bed. Ian Button's suicide caused pandemonium here at Northampton Hospital, with staff and patients shocked and distressed by what they saw. The bullet went straight through his head and was found on the floor. It's conceivable that it could have hurt or even killed somebody else. Button originally told police he thought his father had found someone at the hospital to dispose of the gun. He later said he hadn't considered the possibility that his father would use it to kill himself. The police officer who was first on the scene and led the investigation came out of retirement today to see Button sentenced.
I think it has to be taken in the context that Guy, as you've quite rightly said, has an impeccable character, and other than the set of circumstances, tragic for him and tragic for his family.
But you're clear in your own mind that he did deserve to go to prison?
Absolutely.
The court heard Button was a music teacher and of previously impeccable character. He was also a devoted only child who had looked up to his father all his life. The judge heard the family home in Northampton was being sold at the time because Button's mother, Christine, had Alzheimer's disease. Today, one charity said caring for dying relatives could put a massive strain on people.
It's absolutely heartbreaking. I think it shows that we have a society and laws which are particularly unforgiving about a people's mental state. We don't know what terrible distress both Guy Button and Ian Button were in when they made that decision. And yet all we're doing now, by punishing the person who gave him the gun, is that we're compounding one tragedy with another.
As Button's friends and family disconsolately left court, he is beginning his prison sentence. He'll be eligible for early release after 18 months.
Let's head back to Matthew now. Matthew, Button actually wasn't charged with assisting suicide. Why exactly was that then?
Well, this is the one aspect of the case that we never really got to the bottom of. First of all, he told the police this story about a man who was prepared to get rid of this illegally held gun. Then he said that the thought never crossed his mind that his father was going to kill himself because he himself was under so much strain. Now, the judge, Judge Wyde, who's very experienced, he said he found it almost incomprehensible that a man as intelligent as Guy Button hadn't considered that possibility at all. But at the end of the day, he was never charged with assisting a suicide. It would appear that the Crown Prosecution Service, at least, was prepared to go along with his version of events to that extent, at least.
So was there any degree of sympathy towards what Guy Button had actually done?
Well, yes, I think there was a great deal of sympathy from the prosecution, from the police, from the judge, and indeed for the media, for the situation that Guy Button found himself in, if not indeed for the way that he chose to resolve that situation. But the police officer that you saw there, well, he said to me off camera, you know, if people had been at the scene and they had seen the immediate aftermath of Ian Button's suicide on the ward, well, perhaps they would have had a little bit less sympathy for his son.
And Matthew, I suppose the other question that this does throw up as well is about the security at the hospital.
Well, the hospital hasn't said anything to us officially. I have to say, I think it's unlikely that there would be any major changes. That might be a little bit like closing the stable door after the horse has bolted. These were very unique circumstances, highly unlikely to happen again. And to be fair, we've seen rather more instances in other hospitals in the region where, in fact, people have taken weapons in order to attack patients.
Matt in Northampton, thank you very much. Well, next tonight, an historic journey to commemorate a mission which rescued hundreds of Jewish children from the Nazis has made the final part of its journey from Prague to London via the port of Harwich.
Now, 70 years ago, Sir Nicholas Winton helped evacuate 669 children from the Czech capital, which had been occupied by Hitler's army. Today, 20 of those children, now pensioners, retraced the final leg of their extraordinary rail journey to be greeted at Liverpool Street Station by Sir Nicholas himself, now 100 years old. Martin Stew has this report.
They were the children who cheated the Nazis. Today, 70 years on, they were back together, and the wartime spirit was as strong as ever. 20 of the original Winton children, evacuated from their homes to escape the Nazis, have been reliving their journey across Europe. And just as in 1939, they arrived in England on the ferry. 70 years ago to the day, the children made their way onto a train just like this from the ferry. It was to be the end of an incredibly long journey. Between 1938 and 1939, nearly 700 children, some just babies, waved goodbye to their parents in Prague. They were taken by train across Germany and into Holland, which was still a free country at the time. There they boarded a ferry to Harwich in Essex before a final train journey to London. For many, the image of their parents waving them off in Prague would be the last time they saw their family.
We didn't think it was going to be the final goodbye. But anyway, Nicholas Winton gave us life.
At Harwich this morning, Renata Lax was reunited with the British boy who in 1939 became her honorary brother. She was just 8 when she left Czechoslovakia. It was a terrifying journey into the unknown, but one that ultimately saved her life.
I came back later to Czechoslovakia. I had no peers, none whatsoever of my age. And they had all gone straight to the gas chambers, usually in Auschwitz or in one of the other camps, with their mothers. So parents didn't survive when they had a child to take care of, because they wouldn't, you know, abandon the child. So Nicholas Winton saved the lives of my parents too.
Being back on the train brought back memories for Suzanne Midas. Aged 16 in 1939, she was only too aware of the dangers they were fleeing.
By the time our train got ready, they had the foresight to seal the doors and seal the windows so that the Germans couldn't get at us. And I have this memory of the Germans angrily shaking their fists at us because we were escaping them.
In total, 10,000 children were saved from Nazi persecution thanks to the Kindertransport. The efforts of Sir Nicholas Winton have led him to be dubbed the English Oskar Schindler.
Different from Schindler in that he didn't put himself in danger in the same way. He makes that point himself. He kept this whole story secret for decades, but actually what he did was every bit as important.
Just after 9, the Winton train left Harwich. At 10:37, it pulled into Liverpool Street Station. And just as 70 years before, Sir Nicholas Winton, now aged 100, was there to greet the children he saved from almost certain death.
Being very left-wing at the time, I disagreed with Chamberlain and thought that what he was doing in trusting Hitler was wrong. I only did it in the evenings. They don't work very hard in the city.
You're getting the hang of it.
A remarkable journey to remember a remarkable rescue, thanks to a remarkable man. Martin Stew, Anglia News, Harwich.